Good afternoon from Pejeta Conservancy in Nanyuki, Laikipia County. Of course, we are very excited to be here, and we have an A-star panel to talk about the tourism sector and also the potential solutions following, of course, coronavirus. The pandemic has taken quite a hit when it comes to tourism activities in the country and also in various sectors. And we're here in Nanyuki to find out what exactly they are doing to entice and attract more visitors into the county. Joining us, of course, we have the Laikipia County Governor, Ndiritu Mureithi. Thank you so much and welcome to the program. Also, we have Sweetwater's camp manager is Felix Ogembo. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And we have Pejeta head of conservation. Of course, he is going to join us and he's going to give us more insights. Sami Mutisia.
Thank you very much.
All right. Just before we delve much deeper into the conversation much further, we are joined by our reporter on the other side of Pejeta, who has been hanging around Rhinos. Let's see what he's up to. Ibrahim Karanja, let's see, what are you up to?
Thank you so much, Brenda. And Pejeta Conservancy is known worldwide because of the rhinos. I'm speaking about the northern white rhinos. Remember Sudan? Yes, the last male northern white rhino that actually died in 2018. And now we have the last remaining 2 female northern white rhinos here. And that is the fame that Pejeta has worldwide. So let me speak to James Mwenda. Mwenda was the caretaker of Sudan, and he knows every information about the rhinos from Pejeta. Thank you so much for speaking to us on KTN News. Let's start with the memory. Sudan, its death made headlines worldwide. The last male northern white rhino. You stayed with Sudan for over 4 years, having worked here for over 10 years. What was the selling point for Sudan? What do you think it is that actually brought the entire world and all the focus to Pejeta during its death?
I think Sudan was the emblem of extinction. We all know that we are having climatic chaos and environmental issues that are affecting our planet. And Sudan was the phase of extinction and a reason why we need to care for our environment, and that's why so many people endeared him.
So that's why so many people endeared him. And I remember a few months, actually 1 month ago, we came here to take over from the last remaining 2 female white rhino, that is Nayin and Fatu. Tell me about that and tell me the kind of expectations you have, having been the ranger for Sudan. What expectations do you have from that exercise?
I think now the fact that naturally now the northern white rhinos have not been able to breed, scientists have explored artificial reproductive techniques, and that's why we've been doing ovum pickups with the northern white rhinos. It's an exercise that has been done 3 times, last year in August, December, and last month, trying to collect as much eggs as possible and to make embryos that are going now to be put into southern surrogate moms.
And you as Mwenda must be excited about it. What are your expectations individually, having been here for that for that long?
As you can attest, it's an emotional drain watching 3 tanned animals nearly to extinction. And I think that's the hope that we all have on an everyday basis. And the fact that there is hope that we can have some baby northern white rhinos is a big remedy for us and for the entire world, because they are charismatic and beautiful animals.
Now, aside from the northern white rhinos, we have the southern, we have the eastern, is it black rhino? Tell me about the rhinos of Pejeta. How many are we talking about? The different species that we have, and why exactly are they kept in different places? Like what is the reason that informs to have Baraka here while other rhinos are outside?
The overall total count of rhinos we have in Pejeta is over 170 rhinos. We have 137 black rhinos. We are the largest black rhino sanctuary in Eastern Central Africa. We have 35 southern white rhinos that are free roaming within the conservancy, and of course the 2 northern white rhinos. Baraka is here by virtue of being blind. He lost his eyes when he was 14 years old, his right eye to a fight in another rhino, and the left eye to a disease cataract. And we sort of made him an ambassador animal, where people can come and interact. People who come to visit Pejeta can come and see a rhino in an close encounter, with the hope of helping create awareness about the plight of rhinos in overall.
And I must attest, because I have interacted with Baraka, that it's such a soft, sort of a kind animal, and that is what I want to talk about. I mean, having been able to tame Baraka, I believe he was wild at some point, and having also been able to tame also the northern white rhinos, the 2 female that are here, because I have also gone to their cages. How long does it take, and what technique do you guys use?
We sort of have a long time experience. The people that were here before us have past knowledge about looking after the rhinos. We have quite a number of rhinos that were taken care of, so there is an history of taking care of rhinos. But it takes quite a while for a rhino to be completely accustomed to be close to people. The northern white rhinos were living in the zoo before they came here, so they were accustomed to be with people. Baraka, it took a few years for him to be accustomed to be around people. So it depends, and I think that's how we take care of him, how frequent we visit him, how frequent we call his name. He gets used to it, and then he is able to respond to it.
Tell me Baraka's story. What happened?
Baraka was living in the northwestern part of the conservancy. He overlapped another male's territory, and they ended up fighting. His right eye was gouged out completely, and it had to be removed. And after some time, the left eye got a disease cataract. And also trying to save it was not possible. So we decided to bring him here and give him over 100 acres where he stays by himself and gives us a chance to take good care of him, because then he can't be able to survive in the wild. And sort of now we've made him that people can approach him, can get to feed him, can get to interact him, with the hope of helping have that bond with people and sort of help people understand how beautiful these animals are.
Mwenda, you are a ranger. Most or the biggest part of your life is spent here at the Conservancy. You are the ambassador for all Pejeta worldwide. You have traveled the world. And many people would not understand what does one need to actually be able to be here. Because I know of people, or there are people we have heard about who, when they see such a rhino, they see only the tusks. They see poaching. But you are living with them like family. What is the secret? What is it that makes you actually find some special interest in animals, unlike other human beings?
I think rhinos are precisely charismatic and beautiful animals. They're very friendly. They have these prehistoric attributes that make them look so wonderful. Apart from that, we need to have people who go into the field and try the best possible to protect these animals. It is ashamedly how much we are losing our natural resources. We have now 1 million species threatened with extinction, according to the UN announcement last year. And sort of the reason why we commit our lives being here on an everyday basis is to ensure that we are able to protect the rhinos. And when we talk about the rhinos, we are talking about the entire ecosystem of Pejeta. We have over 100 species of animals that call Pejeta home. And that means when we protect rhinos, we are protecting the entire ecosystem and all other areas within the country. So the more we are able to protect them, the more we are able to guarantee, because they are large animals, they require large spaces to live. And protecting these large spaces, we need to make sure that they stay intact.
You need to ensure that their space is intact. Perhaps the last thing that you may want to highlight for us, aside from the rhinos, if I were to come to Pejeta rather, what do I expect to find? What is the selling point? What should I be looking forward to?
Pejeta, of course, we are well known for having to be the home of the last 2 northern white rhinos. We have the largest population of black rhinos in East and Central Africa, so you will not miss a chance to see a rhino. We are the only conservancy who has chimpanzees in Kenya. That's the only place you can see chimpanzees in Kenya. So anyone who comes to visit us will be able to see that. We also have all the big 5 within our entire ecosystem. So there's a variety of animals that you'll be able to see, and an experience to inspire you to more so take care of our environment.
Thank you. So actually the point should be to be inspired to take care of our environment. Well, Brenda, you have heard it from Mwenda. He speaks about the heritage that is all Pejeta. And when you come to Nanyuki, as we speak about Twende Nanyuki, we are definitely speaking about one of the destinations where you should actually go to. This is this place. So as I wind up, I want to have this great time and interact with Baraka. Maybe after you have done with this live broadcast, you should come and also have some good time with him.
I mean, I was feeding him a little earlier, and it was a very exciting experience. And I'm looking forward to do just that right after this conversation. Of course, coronavirus has affected quite a number of industries in the country and also the world at large. Here in Kenya, tourism, which contributes at least 10% to the gross domestic product, or the total number of goods and services produced in the country, has lost about $752 million so far. This is because of the pandemic, restrictions such as movement, whereby we were required not to go to various counties, as well as social distancing. These have affected very much the tourism sector. Now, to give us more information in relation to this, we are joined by an A-star panel, and I'm very excited to host them for that matter. Of course, the governor for Laikipia County, Ndiritu Mureithi. We also have the Sweetwaters camp manager, Felix Ogembo. Welcome to the program. And of course, we have Pejeta head of Conservancy here at Pejeta. We are joined by Sami Mutisia. Thank you so much for having us on the program, for having you guys on the program. All right.
We're happy to be here.
Thank you for hosting us.
Perhaps we can start with a snapshot of where the pandemic has brought us to date. Let's start with the county as a whole. Let's go way back to March and April, when the first case was announced in the country. What was going on in your head? What was happening? Did you think the effects will be as bad as we are at the moment?
Well, it's a bit of a yes and no. I think on the medical side, we were all quite afraid because by that time, we were seeing horrific scenes in countries like Italy, for example. Hospitals completely overwhelmed and unable, therefore, to offer treatment to patients who needed critical. So we were very afraid that the pandemic was going to be disastrous in terms of the cost for human life. And that is why, governments across the world, many governments, simply brought the economies to a standstill. Now, economic activity is based on human contact. So, for example, travel, people come to these properties to enjoy, and so on. So once you curtail human contact and human travel, the businesses came to a complete halt. And that's across the whole country. Most hotels closed down, restaurants and so on. So the economic cost then, of course, became quite a huge burden, including, for example, county government having to support families whose breadwinners had been working in the tourism industry. So quite catastrophic indeed. But we're glad on the human cost, the impact was less than feared. But on the economic cost, the impact, in fact, is far, far greater than we could have thought.
Governor, before we delve much deeper into job losses, the hotel sector was one of the key places that was the hardest hit. And he just spoke about business closures because of the pandemic. There were once, of course, restrictions put in place in relation to that. People were told to stay at home. What happened in the case for Sweetwaters? How was it?
Okay, Brenda, 2020 was a year that we were all looking forward to. Our figures were looking good in terms of occupancy projections for the year. And the first 2 months, we were already over our budget for 2019. So we were looking forward to a very good year in 2020. But mid-March, when the pandemic hit home and the flights were cancelled, and almost immediately after, the restrictions that were put by the government on inter-county movement, that really hit us hard. First of all, the international tourism was stopped by the flight ban, and then locals could not travel to come to Sweetwaters. So we ended up with a situation where we could not receive guests anymore, and we had to shut down. So we closed around beginning of April. So from beginning of April, we were closed up to about mid-May, towards the end of June. That's when there was a bit of an easing of the travel, and we started getting a few clients from other counties, not necessarily Nairobi or Mombasa, which were under lockdown. So we started operating with a few clients that we were receiving, and then, of course, we also had to scale down on the manpower. So what we did, we were operating with a lean staff from June, about 25 to 35 staff. And since then, we've been operating with that number of staff, but on a rotation basis, so that at least each and every staff can get something to take home at the end of the month. So that is a strategy we've adopted from June in terms of the numbers of staff.
Sami, was that, or is that the case for Pejeta as well? Did you have to tell some people, stay at home, we are closing down just for this pandemic?
I think for Pejeta is, was equally shocking. Nobody was prepared for this kind of impact that the pandemic had. And so for Pejeta, it was clear that we were bound to suffer the consequences because 70 to 75% of our revenue comes from tourism. And majority of that comes from foreign tourism as well. So it hit us hard. The only thing that was unique with us is that you couldn't shut down as many would imagine because we are dealing with wildlife. Wildlife here and the need for wildlife protection continue to be and has been all through the pandemic period. And so we were not in a position to shut down business. We needed to carry on with almost 90% of what we do. And so the lack of clients coming in through the gates, getting into the 9 facilities or so that are dotted across the Conservancy was quite dire for us. And, you know, like any other wildlife conservancy, we were cash-struck and, you know, serious consequences.
And let's talk about the job losses, Governor. I mean, the hotel industry had to send some staff home. Others, like what Felix is saying, had to be put on a rotational basis. Just how bad was it? How bad even is the situation? Because some of them are still not operating at occupancy levels to pre-COVID moments.
Well, the circumstance was quite tough. I think we in Laikipia, we estimate somewhere between 28 to 30,000 job losses. As these managers have said, tourism was hit perhaps the hardest, followed by horticulture. These are, you know, we grow flowers and vegetables, which we export. So when the flights were banned, we couldn't export. Into May, into June, some little bit of possibility, for example, for charter flights that made it possible for some minor exports. At the height of it, we were, as a county, we were supporting 27,000 families. So not people. So if you say take an average household of 4, you know, that is close to 100,000 people who needed regular support on just basic livelihood of what to eat. So it was a very, a devastating thing indeed. Now, where are we? The economy is sort of, crawling its way towards getting on its feet. And that is why you've been seeing governments like mine taking certain measures to try and help businesses to recover. For example, in the tourism sector, we've partnered with Kenya Railways and many other partners, and so that we can help the tourism sector to find its feet. And we believe certainly in Laikipia that we have a product that is attractive to the Kenyan, and we want to encourage all Kenyans to come out to various places and properties in Laikipia. There's plenty of stuff to do and see. Very cosmopolitan kind of outlook in most of our main towns, in Nanyuki, in Nyahururu, in Rumuruti. So it's a fun place to come on out. And as I said, for example, this weekend, very special weekend, Tourism Day, World Tourism Day. So we had partnered with, for example, Kenya Railways, and a long train came out last night from Nairobi to Nanyuki, bringing out Kenyans to come and enjoy a weekend out. So karibuni sana.
Thank you so much. And of course, Standard Group is part of the partnership, and that is specifically why we are here and having this discussion. Governor, when you talk about support for the families that you talked about earlier, do you mean giving them direct cash transfers? Does it mean that you give them food? What kind of support?
Both. We were providing a care package that would last a family of 4 for about a month, and also some cash transfers in some instances. And in terms of some business, we have mobilized 3.3 billion from the Kenyan financial sector, working with leading banks to provide very, very affordable credit to particularly small businesses that are trying to. So you can think about restaurants and bars and so on as they try to reopen. We also have on the boil a program, working with Diageo and Almasi, which we hope to announce soon, again aimed at assisting, restaurants, eateries, and so on to reopen.
And talking about reopening, Sami, the pandemic is here. Still no vaccination. Clearly, it's going to be here for a while. But that does not mean everything has to be left the way it is. We have to move on, and business has to go on. How exactly is Oil Pejeta positioning itself in relation to the pandemic and taking safety measures?
Brenda, thank you. It's important to note that up to 95% of the revenues that we make on an annual basis has been lost due to the pandemic. And so there has been a lot of plans and strategies to try and salvage the situation. So we currently are out doing a lot of fundraising. Pejeta is a unique model because we do both integrated wildlife livestock keeping. So we have an agricultural component. So we've quite much tried to boost that as much as we can to try and salvage, to try and make some revenues out at the back of it. And again, the fact is that we even have within Pejeta some species. It's the only place in Kenya, by the way, you can see chimps in their near natural environment. And chimps are likely susceptible to the same disease as we are. And so there's certain measures that we've had to take. For example, Code on the Move, begin to institute measures to ensure that there is no chance that this disease could jump from man to the chimps. We basically have also looked at how can we be more creative to continue engaging the public generally to get involved in conservation. We've done sofa safaris. There are so many editions now that are available in Pejeta Escapes. And so, there's various strategies that we are putting in to try and explore other opportunities of ensuring that we continue to strongly protect wildlife that we so much cherish as a county and as Pejeta.
And of course, Felix, Sweetwaters is also open in the middle of a pandemic. What does that mean?
Like you rightly said it, Brenda, we'll have to learn how to live with this pandemic. Vaccine is another story. We are not sure when it will be ready and when it will even get to Kenya. But like His Excellency said, we have been spared the worst of the pandemic. So it's, I think, time we move on and see how we can live with this. So as a camp, we have ensured that all our protocols are up to standard, and we are constantly improving on the protocols that have been provided by the Ministry of Health and the county government. So constantly ensuring that our protocols are up to par, because eventually this is what will give a client or a guest the comfort to come. When they come to our property and see that all the protocols are followed and even higher, it will give them the comfort to come back and even call and tell others to come. So we are constantly training our staff as well on the protocols and ensuring that wherever they are in the hotel, whatever they are doing, they are all observed.
When you're talking about protocols, what exactly do you mean?
The protocols, the hygiene protocols within the camp, be it sanitization, hand washing, cleaning process of the rooms, of the public areas, meeting the guests, the social distancing or the physical distancing, as it is now called, the disinfection of all the public areas, even the rooms, as soon as the clients check out, to ensure that all precautions are taken for COVID.
Governor, how do you sell a holiday destination in the middle of a pandemic? I'll give you an example. The other day, my mom was traveling and she was going out of Nairobi. We stay in Nairobi. And she was telling me, because of the pandemic, I have to carry my own bed sheets. I have to carry this. She had an array of other key.
Yeah.
She calls them essentials. I wasn't thinking those are not essentials. But she said, you can never be so sure about the hotel. You can never be so sure. I mean, how do you sell a holiday destination in the middle of a pandemic?
Look, first of all, let me start on a very, very broad macro level. Every circumstance has a silver lining. And what we are seeing as a health sector, the diseases that are caused by issues of hygiene, public health issues, are way down. Right now, if you look at what, we keep data on what people are getting sick from. And what you will find, that those things that are the result of poor hygiene, those diseases are way down. So that's a plus. It also means that that cost is a little bit reduced. Now, I ask the question, what protocols? That as you enter into any premise, you wash your hands, you sanitize, you wear masks as you're interacting with people. Within the context of hotels, for example, the way in which, as Felix was explaining, rooms are cleaned and so on and so on. And for example, from a health point of view, our health workers who have been taking care of Kenyans who are affected by COVID themselves live within a quarantine circumstance, so that you reduce the possibility of infection. But I think what we need to tell Kenyans is that this virus is not going away someplace. What will happen is that the curve will flatten, meaning that the rate of infection is contained. It is contained because of the measures that we have collectively been taking for the last 6 or 7 months. And if we maintain those measures, then the rate of infection will be manageable. The challenge with this virus worldwide was that the speed of spread was so fast that it would overwhelm any health system anywhere in the world. And that is why people are dying. Because once the hospital system is incapable of dealing with it, so we're lucky, but also the measures we've taken. In Laikipia, for instance, we were the first and we were the last, meaning we went on with it for a long time to do basic screening of visitors coming into the county. So as you drove in, you would be stopped and health workers would take your temperature and other vitals, just so that we can manage ourselves better. So what I would say and encourage your mom is that come on out to Laikipia. Both the industry and government have worked very, very closely together to ensure that we protect the lives of Kenyans, even as they enjoy the amazing vistas that is Laikipia.
Felix, I'm sure my mom is not the only local tourist with very absurd behavior in relation to the pandemic. What are some of the strangest things that you've had so far in relation to the pandemic? When they come in, the visitors, and you go like, this is unique.
Okay. One of the questions we were getting when we reopened at first, the first questions we'll get from clients coming in is that, what protocols are you following from the Ministry of Health? And I will have to go through all the protocols that we are going through to almost each and every client that comes in, because people were so concerned, very, very concerned about the potential for exposure when they come. But with time, we have managed to fit hand washing facilities all over the camp, sanitizing facilities. We provide sanitizers in the rooms, and all these protocols we have seen. When clients see what we are doing, it is giving them an assurance that where they're coming is very safe. So at the end of their stay, when you ask them, did you feel safe during your stay? They said, yes. In fact, I'm going to call my friends to come here. So the other thing which we've also done is reduced the number of rooms that we are selling. We're only operating with about 60% of our inventory. This is to ensure that the social distance is observed within the camp. So when guests come, they already see that, okay, there are people, but it is not crowded, you see? Unlike if you are selling the whole camp. So that one has also worked very well for us. So we are operating on just about 50 to 60% of our capacity at the camp. So you can ask your mom to come and visit us. So I'm sure she'll be very happy.
Sami, Pejeta has a very interesting model. Would you say that the pandemic has affected any of your projects? For instance, Poaching, which has been on a downward trajectory in the last 3 years. Would you say that this pandemic has definitely affected some of the key projects that you had put in place at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, Brenda, as I said from the onset, is that we've had consequences because of the disease. And as His Excellency and my friend Felix here said, a lot of measures have been put in place to ensure that we continue to survive. I said from the beginning that 90% of our operations being a conservancy have had to continue. So we've had to institute measures. We work with rangers, patrolmen, there comes a times where you cannot mix them because you do not want one team, in case affected, to infect the other. There's a lot of quarantine for various sections and divisions working in various places. There's quite a bit of measures in place, but one of the things, just to diverge a little bit, to tell your mother, is that, a game drive is one of the safest things that you can ever do during the pandemic. It's open air, you're free to drive around and about, but by and large, Poaching.
And there's only one or two of you in a nice Range Rover, very
in a very airy environment where you can you can drive. But by and large, we've had to work tooth, quite frankly, flat out to ensure that we still continue to protect the wildlife. You've said well that over the last couple of years we've not had any poaching incidents. I think that has been as a result of the management taking deliberate measures to ensure that we continue to protect these species. So, the lack of revenue is, in the long term, if this persists and if we don't get creative, and I'm very happy to see His Excellency the Governor here, and Laikipia as a county proposing measures that will encourage Kenyans to come and visit, which will increase the revenues that we need to continue to paying rangers, to continue to paying the number of staff that we must have here. So it has not had any effect because we've, in terms of protecting wildlife, because we've devoted our effort as much as possible and the little revenue that we had in reserve to ensure that we continue to protect these species. However, if we don't do something, because this disease is going to be here with us for long, we could begin to see these things happen. We're touching wood that we don't find ourselves in such a scenario.
And Sami, speaking of enticing locals to come and visit such places as Pejeta, I was doing the drive in the morning, Governor, and I must say I love elephants. But after hanging around Baraka and of course the girls Najin and Fatu, they warmed my heart and I love them. Do you see more demand coming from rhinos, the big five still, or people just want to relax? They want a getaway away from the traditional city landscape. When they come to a place such as this one, where do you see demand come from? Do they tell you, I want to do more drives, I want to see more animals, or I just want to let loose and relax?
I think letting loose has been quite something. Of course, there is the place of the big five, and we have the big five, and on top of it we have the last two remaining northern whites here in Laikipia and at Pejeta. We are the only place in this country that you can see chimpanzees in their near natural environment. And so I think after the lockdown was sort of eased, there was a lot of desire to come out, just have that freedom of driving around and having the experience of nature, being one with nature. And so that becomes, it's something that we not only also sold and wanted to sell, but actually it is something that we take pride in. If we lose such spaces, if we lose the opportunity to be able to see wildlife in such numbers as you have just said, I think it's a great loss to the country, it's a great loss to the county. And we encourage every Kenyan to come and have this experience. We are open to this experience to anybody who wants to be part of it.
And Governor, when locals come to you, or even people outside Laikipia County, when they come to you and you tell them, come visit Laikipia County, come and see our various holiday destinations, what's the one thing that they ask you? Is it going to be the pandemic will be far, I won't think about it, the repercussions, or I just want to come see the animals?
I think frankly, if I look at say Kenyans in Nairobi, you see, the idea of being cooped up and movement restricted has a certain social as well as psychological effect. So truly, there's been a great deal of desire for Kenyans to be able to get out a little bit so that this pandemic is not affecting them psychologically and socially. And so we encourage Kenyans to come out, because which better place than the open Laikipia? And there is so much to see here. On this property alone, at Pejeta, nine
and Fatu, yeah.
But I'm saying how many properties here? How many? 9 different.
There's 9 facilities.
Nine facilities to choose from within this one conservancy. So there is everything for you. You just need to look. And Pejeta, for example, is about 15-20 minutes away from Nanyuki town. So you can experience both, urban life if you want to, as well as conservation when you want to. And this is only one corner of Laikipia. There are dozens of other places like this spread out across Laikipia. So even from a health point of view, it's very good for you to come on out. I know some Kenyans often ask me, there, Laikipia, it might be expensive for us. No, we are very, very affordable. We do offer a quality product, so it is priced that way. But believe you me, you will find a niche for your budget in this Laikipia. So karibuni.
Felix, I saw you give such a hearty laugh. Is the cost element still a factor, even with the pandemic?
It is, yes. But as a company, we are cognizant of the fact that things are not the same. People's pockets are not as deep as they were last year or early part of the year. So we have reduced our rates by between 25 to 35% for the citizens so that they can come and enjoy these facilities now. Last year, our rates were much higher, but we cannot maintain the rates for last year and still expect to get citizens to come and visit us this year. So our rates are low by 25 to 35%, and these rates will run up to the end of the year. Yeah, before we look at it for next year. And then this year, I mean, if you're a businessman, a hotelier, and hoping to make profit, that's a very high hope. So what we are just doing is holding fort and trying to keep the place running and getting something into our associates' pockets. And issues of profit, we'll look at it next year. But this year, we just maintain and see and mitigate the losses that we can make this year.
All right, it's been 2 months since international travel began, August 1st, and now we are going on to October 1st, about 2 months. Would you say that international traffic has slowly started to peak? Are you seeing more international bookings at the moment?
Let me say they're trickling in. Yeah, of course not the numbers that we'll expect, but they're trickling in. But again, if you look at our source markets, you are seeing more like a second wave of the pandemic occurring. So it's very difficult for them to ease the travel restrictions out of our source markets. Another challenge that we're also facing from the international markets is that a lot of insurance companies out there do not want to insure their clients to come all the way to Kenya in the middle of the pandemic. So some are very hesitant to travel. Of course, you have those who are very confident and say, I will go, insurance or no insurance. But a bigger portion is being held up because of those insurance restrictions from the source market.
Sami, Felix mentioned a very critical point. I mean, we are seeing a potential second wave, especially in European countries such as the United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, and also France. These are key markets when it comes to international arrivals, especially in Kenya. And Pejeta, you have a lot of international traffic from these various countries. How are you being affected in relation to this? Are you seeing just a tad of demand picking up, or are you seeing a flat demand? What is happening when it comes to this?
Yeah, you've rightly put. We receive quite a bit of traffic from the international market. In fact, nearly 40%, comprises foreigners. And these, we've not really seen the kind of peak that we would have wanted. So we're still quite hopeful and optimistic that this will change. But then the second wave is threatening that kind of a situation. So, but what we are doing as a conservancy is that we obviously are recognizing these challenges, and just as Felix said, we are charging a conservation fee, which is the gate fee, 50%. So, as a Kenyan, with as little as 700 shillings, you can actually come and enjoy all these facilities that we are actually talking about. And so reducing some of those costs to nearly 50%, pushing out activities that are immersive in nature, that allow you to interact and to work as a conservationist, and also reduced cost of those activities that any tourist can take part in, is also a measure of attracting and letting Kenyans enjoy that which would have be a little bit at a cost to them. So we are encouraging, we are conversing with tour organizations, with groups, to ensure that we continue to receive and continue to address the gap that is left by diminishing international travels.
Speaking of diminishing arrivals, I mean, that's Europe. Of course, they're going into winter. There are these concerns. But there are other potential key markets, especially in Asia. Governor, are there plans to entice more Chinese, more Japanese, more Asian countries, even in the Middle East, to come on board and visit our holiday destinations?
Thanks, Brenda. First of all, actually you'd be surprised at the number of American tourists as compared, say, to UK tourists visiting Laikipia. So the US continues actually to be a significant source market for Laikipia, and this is why we were involved in the inaugural KQ flight to New York. And also perhaps because there's quite a bit of American interest around here, Loisaba, Impala research and so on. To the Chinese market, we have an ongoing partnership with Wuhan province, and their governor came out here about a year and a half ago. So we do have some ongoing efforts to increase the number of Chinese tourists. Some of the properties in Laikipia are already enjoying significant traffic or tourists from China. But as we say in Laikipia, a good thing can be made better. The number one, though, certainly from a government point of view, my government, the number one target that we see we have somewhat neglected in the past is the Kenyan tourist. That when you think about holidays, perhaps you think about the coast or other destinations such as Masai Mara. Yet this really unique product, centrally located, within a couple of hours away from Nairobi, by plane, 30 minutes, 2 hours by road, 3-4 hours by train, absolutely accessible. In Kenya, this Laikipia probably has the highest concentration of wildlife, particularly if you consider outside a national park. So this is the place to come and enjoy, and the variety of the product. Because if you think about where we are, sort of the southern side of Laikipia, all the way to the northern side, other properties from Loisaba to Mugie to the western side bounding Baringo, the diversity is incredible. If you look at the more higher country around Nanyuki, Nyahururu, then into the lowlands, into Rumuruti, it's amazing, amazing diversity. So as government, we're very, very focused at trying to promote the Kenyan to come and visit Laikipia and make it a holiday destination and enjoy the amazing spread of activity that is available.
And Governor, we've talked about protecting the visitors in the middle of a pandemic.
Indeed.
But we also have to talk about the workers, Felix. We also have to talk about the people who are actually involved in working for these specific tourism sectors. Governor, how do you balance livelihoods, source of income, and lives?
Well, as you know, as establishments were reopening, one of the steps was in fact to test staff, and that continues, periodic testing, so that you manage that risk, and we'll continue to do so. In addition, in the larger environment in which we are all living, we continue with very strong testing in order to track how the pandemic or how the disease has moved. In Laikipia, I think we've tested now just shy of 10,000, 2,000 and nearly 40 persons affected, 4 fatalities, and the rest basically healed. So it is there. As I said, the health devastation is far less than we had feared, but the economic devastation is gigantic. And this is why we're looking forward, on Monday, there's a national COVID conference, and we hope that out of the consultations that have been going on and looking at the data, that we are all persuaded we are in a reasonable place to reopen this economy. We don't say that it is finished, it isn't, and it will persist, it will be there for quite some time, but we do believe scientifically we are in a position to reopen this economy without really endangering the lives of Kenyans.
And Felix, what are some of the safety measures that you are taking to protect your workers?
Okay, thank you, Brenda. First, I think I must acknowledge the county government led by His Excellency Nderitu. They were really, really instrumental in helping us reopen. As you know, one of the requirements was for all food handlers or staff to get tested. We never had any issue with this. The process was very smooth. In fact, at some point, I think they gave us priority because of the reopening. And every month, our staff on rotation, you first get tested before you come into the camp. And when you come into the camp, you're there for a whole month. After that 1 month, you leave, you go home and rest, and then come back. So every time we get a new lot of staff, they have to get tested, and the results have to come out, and they have to be negative. I'm happy to report that we've not had any positive case ever since we reopened. Number two, we've had lots of training, even from the county government, external trainers on the safety, on how the staff should take care of themselves. We've provided all our staff with the necessary PPEs and the protocols that they need to work with in their areas of work. And yes, it is a risk, but as long as the SOPs are followed or the protocols are followed, we are able to keep that risk at bay as they work.
And of course, Sami, very quick, what are some of the measures that all Pejeta is taking?
Thank you, Brenda. At every entrance to our Pejeta, we've put all the sanitization and the sanitization principles that have been advised by the World Health Organization and the Ministry of Health. We've had our staff tested, just like my colleague said here, facilitated by the county government, just to ensure that these people continue to be healthy. We've also ensured that every wildlife that needs protection, that is susceptible to this disease, we institute measures such as, isolation of people returning to work, ensuring that we have the right protocols in place. And so generally we are compliant, and we are excited that actually the measures that we have put in place is bolstering confidence amongst our visitors. So
thank you so much, Sami Mutisia, Head of Conservation here at Pejeta Conservancy, Felix Ogembo, Camp Manager at Sweetwaters,